Welcome everyone to the NIFS webinar on shaping the next generation. Just letting everyone get in, and we'll probably start a minute or two after the hour.
Hi, Bill. I'm
Hi, Jared. Hello.
just driving back to the home office, but thought I'd call in and listen to the webinar anyway. Hope you don't mind.
Nope, not at all. We'll just put yourself on mute, Jared, and you'll be all set.
All right, sir. Good luck. Can't wait to hear it.
Thank you. All right, Jim, we'll get started. We'll one more minute. We'll let a couple more people come on. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill Padness. I'm the Director of Workforce Development for the Non-Ferrous Founder Society. So glad that all of you are coming on. I know a lot of you that will be definitely watching this webinar afterwards. Just want to remind everyone, you're all on mute. At the end, we will have a Q&A session. But feel free to put something in the chat already or put something down in Q&A, and I'll be glad if you want to unmute you at the end if you want to ask your question live, or feel free to type it in. This webinar, when we decided with the Next Gen committee, there was really only one person that I thought about to be able to lead this session, and it's my friend Jim Mayer.
Oh, I
Um,
was going to say that person wasn't available, so you came to me,
I
right?
came to you. Um, Jim and I, have worked together. We've collaborated and in the past, and always had lively discussion when it comes to mentoring, workforce development, employee engagement, especially because the fact that he has over 2 decades of experience in the manufacturing industry and really has become a recognized leader, storyteller, and advocate for the transformative power of connections. Just go to Jim's LinkedIn page and you'll see his connections and where he is. He was just in Michigan at the Automate conference, and you'll
Yeah.
see some great photos of him all over the place. Mostly he's right now currently the founder of the Manufacturing Connector, where he has built a platform that strengthens industry through innovative content, leadership and development, and community building initiatives. He truly inspires collaboration, empowers emerging leaders, and celebrates the human side of manufacturing. As I said, Jim and I have known each other for a long time, and I can tell you he is truly a passionate advocate for manufacturing and really is truly right now dedicated to amplifying the voices of industry leaders and sharing the values and innovations that drive the sector forward. Through his leadership programs, speaking opportunities, live events, and especially his podcast, very popular podcast, where I was the third guest of his
You were.
podcast. And it was definitely the podcast has gotten much better since I spoke a couple years ago.
We'll get you back
Um,
on, Bill. We'll get you back on.
he equips professionals with the tools and insights they need to thrive in a rapidly changing landscape. Jim is truly authentic. He is curious about everything, especially when it comes to manufacturing and the people side of it. Because of that, he is a sought after speaker who engages audiences with a unique ability to connect people to ideas, opportunities, and each other. He is truly committed to fostering meaningful growth and innovation and continues to shape the future of manufacturing and elevate its culture. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present Jim Muir, our speaker for Shaping the Next Generation, the Mentor's Playbook for Foundry Leaders. Jim, this is all yours.
Wow, Bill, what an intro. Thank you very much. And we will definitely get you back on the podcast. Uh, Anybody who's on today, I can't see your faces, but I will invite you on as well. We can talk about that at the end. I love hearing people's stories, and when we talk about mentorship, it's all about people's stories. I've spent the last 3 years doing the podcast, asking people in this industry one very simple question, and that is, when did you first feel like you belonged here? And the most common answer I get, it wasn't a date, it wasn't a job title, it wasn't a certification. It was a person that impacted their journey. It was when Steve taught me how to read that pattern book, or when Maria told me to stop apologizing and start leading, or when someone finally said, "You've got this." We don't build people with training manuals, we build them with relationships. I don't care how technical your process is, how high your spec tolerances are. If your shop floor can't transfer wisdom from one generation to the next, then your culture is running on borrowed time. And folks, Bill gave a great intro for me, but let me be completely frank. I've never been in your shoes. I've never poured metal. I've never worn steel-toed boots through a double shift, but I have sat in enough break rooms. I've stood in enough factories, facilities, plants, and I've listened to enough supervisors to hear the same thing over and over and over again over the last 15 to 20 years. We don't have enough time to train our people. Our people don't want to learn, and nobody's ready to lead. And I believe every single one of you when you say that. I believe you because we've built a system where speed beats depth of human, where headcount replaces mentorship, where we get really used to having classes of trainees every so often, uh, where we say that people are our greatest asset, and then we bury them in tasks with zero support. So this session, it's not about a new program. It's not going to be about checking boxes or running a better review cycle. It's going to be about how to choose every day to be the kind of leader that someone else deserves. It's going to be about showing up when it's easier to check out than check in with your people. It's going to be about saying you matter here, even if you're not sure that people will stay, and then connecting the dots for people on why they should stay. It'll be about turning what we wish we had into what we're willing to give to people. Because there's one simple truth that I truly believe, and that is, if we don't start mentoring differently with more intention, more courage, and more care, we'll lose more than just workers. We'll lose our wisdom, we'll lose trust, and we'll lose the kind of leadership that makes people proud to show up. And we can't afford that, not in this economy, not in this industry, and not in this moment in time. So we're going to talk about what it really takes to lead the next generation and what it might ask of us to be the mentors that they actually need. So let's dive into this. So, what is mentorship? Mentoring has a different purpose and goal than a lot of other leadership functions. Mentoring is the act of guiding, counseling, and supporting. This is vastly different from coaching. It is fundamentally teaching. However, the objective is slightly different because mentorship is more voluntary in nature and less formal than coaching. The mentor and protege go on a endeavor on a broad development goal, like becoming a leader or moving up within the ranks or developing a new skill set. Mentoring encompasses many complex areas of development. And when we look at the slide here specifically, this is a model that is used in a lot of apprenticeship programs. It's used in a lot of our industry and our developing of people. 70%, this is a 70-20-10 rule. Bill, you and I have talked about this rule at depth for years now. 70% should be on the job experience. And for every hour that you spend with somebody on the job, 20% should then be coaching and mentoring about that on the job experience that somebody had. 10% should be formal classroom learning, right? So if we look at somebody and they have 10 hours of training dedicated to them, only one of those hours should be formal learning in a classroom or reading or a webinar or anything of that nature. Two of those hours should be coaching and mentoring around that topic, and 7 hours should be then on the job experience, putting those things into practical use. The part that we skip a lot in our industry is that 20%. So we're going to go through today, how do we make that 20% happen and how do we make it matter? So let's talk about what's happening out there. We are watching an entire generation of skilled workers walk out the door, and many of them are leaving quietly. There's no farewell parties, no send-offs, just years and years of hard-won knowledge disappearing with a handshake and a cleared-out locker. We don't have a bench that's ready to replace them, and that's not an exaggeration. It's the math of it. The average manufacturing worker in the US is now over 50 years old. We've known that this was coming for a long time, but this has been a scheduled retirement, the silver tsunami. And meanwhile, the folks who are coming in, they're younger, they're often much greener, and they're walking into environments that weren't designed for them because of how they were raised. So what happens with all this? Those younger people get labeled as lazy or disloyal because they jump jobs. They get tossed into roles that they're not ready for. And when they struggle, we act surprised that they're struggling. But here's the part that we don't talk about enough. People don't leave because a job is hard. They leave because they feel alone in that job. They feel like they're on an island. Another thing that's really big, 1 in 3 injuries on a job site happen in the first year. And when I say job site, I mean manufacturing facility. And that's not because new workers are careless. It's because no one's teaching them what to look for. They don't have that mentor, that seasoned veteran that's standing next to them, telling them what to look for, helping them not repeat the mistakes that they made. No one's walking through the quiet dangers that exist or the unwritten rules that exist within a facility. Those are the things you can only learn from somebody who's actually lived it. And if we don't make mentorship a priority now, not in the future, not someday, not when we have more time, then we're making an intentional choice to let that knowledge die in that silent retirement. Mentorship is going to be the only system we have for preserving that knowledge, and that's really what matters. It's really an operational risk mitigation strategy. It's a workforce strategy, and it's all about human safety. And so today we're going to talk about some things that are hard to hear, especially for some of you leaders in the room. If we say we care about retention, but we don't invest in mentorship, we're not actually solving the problem. We're outsourcing the blame to the next generation, because mentoring isn't just a nice thing to do. It's not something that can be performative. It's the most radical long-term people first strategy that we've got. So the question isn't why mentorship now, it's what are we risking if we don't start mentoring our people now? So we're going to reframe this a little bit. We don't have a people problem in manufacturing at all. I don't think that we have a uh, skills gap that we talk about. I think we have a culture gap. I think we have a leadership gap, and I think we have a support problem, a trust problem, a transfer of wisdom before it's too late type of a problem. And mentorship, it sits in the center of every single one of those challenges. We talk a lot about that skills gap, but what we really say out loud is most of the skills we're missing can't be taught in a classroom. They live in somebody's muscle memory out on your foundry floor. It's in the way they scan a machine with their eyes before even touching it. It's the unspoken rhythm of how they train, troubleshoot, and adapt. Mentorship isn't just about those skills, it's about how that knowledge stays in the building. We talk about, sorry, scrolled the wrong part of my screen there. We talk about retention like it's a mystery, and retention's not a mystery. People don't leave again because the job is hard. People leave because no one's helping them get good at it. Um, we talk about how people don't show up, but what happens when they do show up and no one invests in them? That's when we lose engagement. And engagement is a whole separate broad topic that, Bill, at some point, I'd love to have an audience with your group here to talk specifically about engagement. But engagement is that discretionary effort that employees give. When people are engaged, they leave less. When people are engaged, they perform better. So it's not the mentorship is when someone takes the time to show them how to succeed, not on the mechanical side, on the social side, on the cultural side, on the emotional side, and then they stay longer. They feel seen. They feel responsible for their job. And then there's safety. Again, safety is a big part of mentorship because it's everything. That's how we recruit people. It's how we retain people. I've talked to so many people on floors that are who have left jobs because they are scared of the facilities that they work in. They feel like they work in unsafe environments. Mentorship can help solve that. I can tell, I can't tell you how many leaders I've talked to who carry the memory of one moment that they wish that they could do over, a moment where they knew better, but didn't say anything, or somebody else knew better and didn't say anything, or the new person didn't ask because they didn't feel like they could. There wasn't that psychological safety. Mentorship builds a kind of kind of culture where people ask before they guess. Where they correct each other without ego, where trust becomes a baseline, not the bonus. And finally, we get into leadership. We want new leaders to step up. We want them to take initiative, to be ready, to be accountable. But we don't grow leaders by promoting them faster. We grow leaders by walking with them while they're still unsure. We have to start developing our leaders while they're individual contributors, not while they are uh, already promoted into that leadership position. A good mentor doesn't pass down instructions, they pass down confidence. They say, I see leadership in you, even before that person does. These are some of the most important things. I'm going to pause, take a sip of coffee, and see it. Bill, are there any questions out there so far?
No questions yet.
All right, fantastic. I'm fueled by engagement and coffee. So if I don't get engagement, I'm going to have to take a break for coffee. Um, so let's get one thing straight. mentorship is not a new initiative. Nothing that I teach in any of my workshops is revolutionary or new. Leadership development is not a new concept. The entire leadership development industry is based on principles that were developed decades ago that are repackaged for an individual leadership or for an individual's audience, right? So Simon Sinek's, Brene Brown's, Adam Grant's, they haven't developed new concepts. They take existing concepts and package them into something that their audience understands, and that's what I do. I know this industry, so I'm able to take the years of experience leading teams that I have and bring it to the industry that I know. Mentorship isn't a form that we fill out. It's not an event. It's a process. It's a relationship, and relationships don't live in binders and handbooks. They live in moments like when somebody comes to you and say, "Hey, I noticed you were struggling with that setup. Let's walk through it together." Or, "Hey, you did a great job on that. Don't blow past it like it's nothing." Or, "Hey, I made that exact same mistake once. You're not the only one." That's where mentorship lives. It lives in those pauses. It lives in the ones that when you could keep walking by somebody, but you stop and said, most mentorship programs, once they're developed, fail because they're designed like projects, not like relationships. Companies will assign pairs, they set deadlines, they assume that putting two people next to each other on a spreadsheet will magically create trust between those two people. But here's what I know, and I think you all know as well. Trust doesn't care about any workflow charts. Trust happens when somebody listens without judgment, when that person remembers your kid's name, when they offer to help without making somebody feel small for needing it. Um, Mentorship isn't about being somebody's manager. Anybody can be a mentor within an organization. It's really about being somebody's person. Um, but being somebody's person costs something. It costs time, it costs patience, and it costs a lot of vulnerability. You have to be open to all of those things. I mentor currently every semester at least one person in the cohort for Ohio University's MBA program. They're starting to see a lot more folks from the industrial world, and I went through their cohort ending in 2016, and they reach out to me every year and say, "Hey, would you mentor this young person?" And I do, but it does. It takes time, a lot of time. It takes patience. It takes me telling them stories about my failures that I've made, the mistakes that I've made. And feeling open about it, right? Um, but one of the other costs and really the hidden cost is that it costs everything to the employee when they don't have a mentor, because that's when they feel alone in a high stakes, high pressure environment, and they'll shut down or blow up and leave. That's when people disengage. That's when people quit, or they go through motions until something breaks. Mentorship stops that spiral. It says you're not alone here. You're safe enough to grow, or I care enough to tell you the truth. It's really the heartbeat of every shop floor. And if we forget that, we over systemize what should be human. And we lose momentum, we lose relationship, we lose a reason anyone wanted to stay in the first place. So here's another thing that's a little tough for people to hear. Not everyone who's a leader is also a mentor, and not everyone who mentors is a leader, because mentorship isn't about that title, and it's not about tenure. It's not being the best person at your job. It's how you show up for other people, especially when it's inconvenient for you. And that's why so many people opt out of mentorship programs. That's why so many companies opt out of mentorship programs, because mentorship asks more of us than most leadership roles ever do. It asks us to stop being the expert and start becoming a mirror for that other person. We've got to stop telling people what to do and start helping them figure out who they are. And that's uncomfortable. That's not a normal thing for people to feel, because it means slowing down. And we work in an environment that we can't always just slow down. It means letting someone else wrestle with the answer instead of just giving it to them. It means holding space for someone who might challenge you or remind you of a version of yourself you're still making peace with. Um, Great mentors don't have a script. There's no script to mentorship programs. What they do have is they have presence. They know when to ask and when to wait. They know when to push and when to protect somebody. They don't look for credit. They don't look for compliance. They need enough courage to say, I'm here and I care enough about you to tell you the truth. Um, I mentioned Adam Grant earlier, and Adam Grant says the best mentors don't mold you, they expand you. They help you unlearn, they help you rethink, and maybe most importantly, they remind you of what you're capable on the days that you forget. Um, Vulnerability builds trust in small moments, not in grand gestures. Mentorship is really just that. It's small, it's powerful, but it's the difference between walking by and stopping. Like I said earlier, it's the difference between being busy and being available, being in charge and being in service. Um, Leadership is never about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about making sure the quietest voice still gets heard. And that's what great mentors do. They don't perform, they don't preach, they don't pretend. They just show up and they stay. Any questions about this slide? Okay.
Nothing at this time.
All right. Fantastic. So for you folks out there, and I have a couple of questions for you for the Q&A session. But let me ask you, when was the last time somebody mentored you? The folks here. Not trained you, not evaluated you, but mentored you, walked with you in your journey, asked you questions that made you think harder and refused to let you settle for your own limitations, your self-imposed limitations. Uh, Most people can't name anybody. Bill, can you think of somebody who's mentored you?
Oh, my one of my first boss, Carl Wingman, at the
Okay.
Center for Association Growth, was um, probably the mentor that I always think about.
Yeah.
Of blessed memory. He did everything you're talking about. Stood sometimes in the sidelines, but then would just have conversations with me and not really realizing that he was mentoring me at the time. But then I look back and I see all that he did to make me who I am.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I love that. Um, if we're being honest, most of us can't think of that person, or it's you know lifetimes ago in the world of work. And again, if we're being honest with ourselves, most of us don't really know how to be that person for someone else. We're told all the time that mentorship matters, but nobody really shows us how to do it. So we default to what we've seen. We give advice to people, we correct their mistakes, and we hope that they figure it out in the long run. But over my time doing what I do, what I've learned is the best mentors are never the ones with all the answers. Again, they're the ones who create space, like Bill just shared. They ask the right questions in the right moments. They listen. And active listening is, again, a whole nother workshop build that we could probably do for your group here. Um, but they listen to not just respond, but to understand. And they know the job isn't going to shape somebody into a clone of themselves. The job is to help them grow into somebody better than us. I'm a firm believer that our role as leaders, and again, leaders don't necessarily need titles, but our role as leaders is to make people better than we are. It's very similar to parenthood. So yes, I have a playbook. Yes, it's going to be available to this group as a downloadable resource specifically for you. Bill will have the link at the end of the podcast or podcast webinar to be able to email out to all the attendees. And Bill, we can make that available for anybody who listens after the live here. It's 5 practices that come up again and again in the research that I do, research that other people have done. I want you guys to remember before we go into these, though, mentorship isn't about perfection. It's about your presence. Um, if anybody has ever tried yoga on here, I hate yoga because I try to perfect yoga, and yoga for me cannot be perfected. My mindset just wanders. Meditation, I don't do well. Um, Very similar here. It's about presence. It's about not being the expert. It's about earning the trust of the person that you're working with. It's about asking better questions. And if you can hold that, these practices will make sense to you. Um, but if you skip straight to the list, you're going to miss a point. So we're going to walk through them one at a time with intention, like somebody else's growth actually depends on it. So play number one, make the first move. Here's something you'll never hear in a mentorship success story. Well, I waited around for someone to ask to be my mentor or to be my protege, and they eventually did. Never hear that, right? It's not how any of this works. Mentorship doesn't start because someone schedules a meeting. It starts because someone gets brave enough to go first. So make that be you. And it might feel awkward. It might not be a natural thing because making that first move means risking rejection. It means that that person could say, I'm good. I don't really want to learn from you. It means reaching out before someone has proven themselves on the shop floor or on the foundry floor. It means saying to that person, I see you and I'm here if you want to grow. No pressure, but a true open door. If you wait for someone to ask for mentorship, they probably never will, especially if they're new, especially if they don't look like you, especially if they've never had someone invest in them before. People carry a lot of baggage from job to job, folks. And what happens to that person in their previous job shapes how they interact with leadership in your facility. Um, the first move is where the power dynamic shifts in that relationship. It's where someone goes from surviving to starting believing like they belong in your facility. The responsibility of leadership, again, is not to be in charge. It's to care for the people in your charge. And that starts with noticing them, noticing who's on the edge of the room, who's been on your team for 6 weeks and still eats lunch alone in the break room, who's messing up the small things, not because they're careless, but because no one's actually taught them yet. Um, Brene Brown talks about how vulnerability builds connection, and and that's really what that first move is. It's being vulnerable. It's you saying, "Hey, I don't have a script for any of this, but I'd love to be someone that you can lean on, even if it's just to ask us stuff that's not in our employee manual." Um, Bill, said it great when he was talking about his mentor. Mentorship doesn't always look like mentorship. Sometimes it starts with just casual check-ins, a question, an offer. How's your first week been? What part of your job's tripping you up? You don't have to figure this all out alone. That's it. That can be your first move. Mentorship doesn't start when you feel ready. It starts when someone else needs you to show up anyway. And it can look like somebody looking back lifetimes later in the world of work and saying, this person was my mentor. There's a difference between hearing someone and truly listening to them. Again, active listening is a very strong soft skill or essential skill. Most of us, especially in leadership, are trained to listen just long enough to respond, to fix, to advise, to move the conversation along. But leadership requires something much deeper than that. It's not passive, it's not polite. And I said it once, I'll say it again. It's all about the presence. I made a lot of mistakes as a leader in my journey. One of them being I wasn't a great listener. I would work on my computer while somebody came into my office to ask a question. I would block them out while they said all the background stuff. And then once they got to their question, I would fix their problem, send them out the door. And that's not leadership. That's not mentorship. That's not listening. Real listening says that you have my full attention, not just because it's my job, but because you matter as a human being. Um, for a mentee, especially one who's new or unsure or doubting whether they even belong in your facility, that kind of listening is rare. Great leaders listen with the intent to understand, not to reply, because when we rush to fill the silence, we miss what's underneath that. And silence doesn't mean that nothing's happening. It often means someone's testing if it's safe to say what they really feel. That's psychological safety. Um, there's a study that people have done uh, that shows that how people are more willing to take risks, share ideas, and stay in difficult roles when they truly feel heard, not just included. Um, it looks like asking questions that invite more than just a yes or a no. Again, like parenthood, if anybody has a teenager or a preteen and you ask them how their day is, they just say good. Or if you ask them yes or no questions, they just give you a yes or no. So I ask questions of people that sound like, what's been the hardest part of your job so far? Or if somebody's new, what surprised you when you first got here that was different from your previous role? Or what do you wish someone had explained to you on day one? And then I just shut up. I listen. I let them talk. I sit in the discomfort of the silence that ultimately is there. I let their story unfold without rushing to solve it. Um, Most people already know what they need to do. They just need a space where it's safe to say it out loud. So listening like it matters doesn't mean you have to agree. It means you're building a relationship where honesty can live, where feedback has roots, where trust has room to grow. So if you do nothing else as a mentor, do this. Listen like your mentee's voice belongs, because if they believe it does, they'll start acting like it out on your floor. So play number three. Most of us were taught that leadership means setting the path, defining the steps, and getting others to follow. But mentorship is not about leading from out front. It's about walking beside someone and letting them shape the direction of where your relationship goes. Uh, so very often, organizations, leaders treat mentorship like a GPS. Here's how I did it. Follow these turns and don't mess up. But nobody is on the same road that you took. Um, Not everybody wants your job as a leader. People think differently, they learn differently, they lead differently. And so co-creation is the difference between mentoring someone for who you were and mentoring them for who they could become. I'm going to say that again. Mentorship, co-creation is a difference between mentoring someone for who you were and mentoring them for who they could become. A lot of times we look at the mistakes that we made and we try and fix them in other people. This is about making somebody better, not fixing your past mistakes. Great mentors don't clone themselves. They help people unlearn inherited ideas that don't serve them. They challenge assumptions. They say, you don't have to do it the way I did. Let's figure out what works for you. And co-creating that path means you stop giving speeches and start asking questions like, what does success look like to you? What skills do you want to build? What kind of leader do you hope to be? And what's getting in the way? Uh, and great leaders often don't have the answers to those questions, because this isn't about solving them. It's about exploring with the people that you're mentoring. Uh, this is called staying curious, staying in the place of knowing, not fixing, and not performing. And really, folks, it's hard, especially if you're used to being the one with all the answers. Um, but here's what happens when you mentor someone this way. They show up differently because they start taking ownership. They start bringing ideas. They feel like a creator in their own path and their own growth and not a passive recipient of yours. That's purpose. And purpose breeds passion. And we're an industry about pride and passion and purpose. And if you do all that, you've helped someone find their purpose. So you're not the blueprint, but you're the builder who hands them the tools and says, what kind of future do you want to make? Point number four, this is where most mentorship goes wrong. We coach on performance, but we forget the person. We focus on productivity, on output, on skill gaps, and we ignore the fear, the doubt, and the pressure sitting underneath the surface of the person. Um, Here's the truth, guys. You don't mentor a position, you mentor a person. Um, People can be technically trained and still be completely overwhelmed in their jobs. People can hit their numbers and still want to quit because people need tactical guidance in their careers. They need human grounding. They need someone who notices when they've checked out, someone who says, you really seem off today. What's going on? Someone who knows that showing up to work isn't the same as being okay. People are not the problems to be solved. They're humans to be understood. And this is where that shows up. Coaching the human means asking different kinds of questions like, how are you doing outside of work? What part of this job is energizing you and what's draining you? Is there anything you're carrying right now that no one else sees? Those are sometimes weird questions to ask, but it means a lot to the person that you ask it of. It means remembering that someone's confidence might be fragile, that showing up every day might be an act of courage, that sometimes mentorship is less about the skills and again, more about belonging. The best leaders in the world of work, and this goes for any industry, but let's focus again on manufacturing and foundries. The best leaders create environments where people feel safe to be themselves. And that's not ping pong tables, that's not pizza parties, that's not open door policies. It's about seeing the person as a whole and saying that they matter here, their head, their heart, and their hands, not for just what you do, but for who you are. Um, because when people feel safe to show up fully, their head, their heart, and their hands, performance follows. Um, So, a question that I want you all to reflect on is, are you mentoring the person in front of you or just managing their outputs? Because one of those builds loyalty and the other one helps you meet your metrics. And mentorship is personal. It has to be, because every person on your floor is carrying something that you can't see, and they're just waiting for someone to care enough about them to ask. The last play is give feedback that builds, and this is the hardest part of mentorship. Um, Eventually, you're going to have to say something that someone doesn't want to hear, and in that moment, everything you've built, the trust, the time, the connection, will either make the feedback land for that person or make it hurt. And we don't want to make it hurt. We want them to take that, because feedback is never about what you say, it's about what they believe you meant. Do they think that you're correcting them because you care or because you're tired of them getting it wrong? Do they feel supported or judged? The difference every single time is the relationship you've built before that moment arrives. Adam Grant says feedback is most effective when it comes from a place of care and credibility. Without care, it's criticism. Without credibility, it's just noise. So, how do great mentors give feedback? They don't attack character, they don't generalize, they don't turn mistakes into identity. They name the behavior, not the person, and they anchor it in belief, not blame. Um, when you say things like, you're better than this mistake, and I know you can fix it, or this moment doesn't define you, it will shape you, or I've done this too. Here's what helped me get it right. Great mentors give feedback in a way that builds self respect, not compliance. And they do something that most people skip. They give feedback when things go well too. We live in a culture addicted to fixing. So when things are working, we move on. We don't celebrate those small victories. We forget to name what someone did right and how powerful that can be for them. If you say things like, you handled that situation like a leader, or I noticed how patient you were, that matters more than you think. Or I really appreciate you asking for help early. That's maturity, not weakness. Because the things we affirm get repeated, and the things we ignore, they disappear. People rise to the level of belief you have in them. Feedback is how you show what you believe, not just in their behavior, but in their capacity. So, yes, hard conversations are part of this, but if feedback feels like punishment, we've missed the point. Feedback should feel like a hand on your back, not a finger wagging in your face. That's what makes mentoring stick, and that what makes your Foundry a place that's safe for people to grow. Some of the common pitfalls. Um, we've kind of covered some of these, and mentorship doesn't fail because of bad intentions. I want to be really clear about that. People don't start mentorship programs because they have bad intentions. They fail because of caution areas, or when we think we're helping, but we're actually holding people back. Or we think we're not really mentoring anyone, when in reality, someone's watching our every move, taking mental note on what leadership looks like. So, three of the biggest ways mentorship can quietly break down are up here on the screen. Pitfall number one is trying to create a clone. It starts with good intentions. Let me show you what worked for me. But somewhere along the way, it becomes, why aren't they more like me? That's not how I would have done it, or back in my day. And none of those things are mentorship. That's projection of what we have done. When we try to replicate ourselves, we miss a chance to expand what leadership can look like. Your job isn't to shape someone in your image, it's to help them grow into their own. Pitfall number two is going silent. Mentorship only works when it's consistent. You can't be available once a month and call it support. You can't show up when it's convenient and disappear when it's messy. Trust isn't built in grand gestures. Again, it's built in small, repeated signals that say, I've got you. Mentorship doesn't need to be formal, but it does need to be reliable. If there's no follow through, there will be no impact. Pitfall number 3 is forgetting to grow too. This is maybe the most uncomfortable for a lot of people. Mentorship is a two-way street. It's not just for the mentee, it's for you too. It's if you're not open to being challenged, questioned, or made a little uncomfortable by the experience, you're not mentoring, you're managing. So I want you to ask yourself, are you still learning? Are you still listening? And are you letting this relationship shape you too? Because when mentorship is working, it's not a one-way street. It's a mirror. And if you're paying attention, you'll come out of it a better leader than when you started. So starting for you, next couple slides, again, will be on that downloadable resource. Everything we've talked about so far, the mindset, the relationship, the 5 plays, the pitfalls, it only matters if you actually show up, if it actually shows up on your floor. So a lot of you are probably saying, where do I begin this? And I want to say it's now. It's not someday. It's not when things are less chaotic, not after the next shutdown. Um, but I don't mean launching a big formal mentorship program with HR decks and laminated badges and sheets and all that. I mean starting where you are with what you have, with who you already trust. So here are some things that you can do immediately. Pair new hires with mentors immediately. Not after orientation, not when somebody proves themselves on day one, because by the time they ask for help, they've already decided whether this place feels safe for them. Assign a person, not a title, whose job it is to walk with them for the first 90 days, not to train them, but to see them, because that differentiator will change everything. Make sure you use a 30, 60, 90-day plan. Keep it simple but intentional. What should they be learning by day 30? What questions should they be asking by day 60? Where should they feel confident by day 90? And what kind of check-ins will make those things happen? This isn't about tracking. It's about building trust before things break. Match by intention, not by convenience. Don't just pair people based on department. Look at the shifts, look at their personalities, look at their learning styles, their language. A mentor doesn't have to be perfect. They just need to listen, care, and stay curious. And train your mentors too. Just because someone is experienced does not mean they know how to mentor. Give them the tools, give them the space to share what's working and what's hard. So don't wait for a rollout. Start with just one conversation with one person. Start with someone who's already watching how you lead and wondering if you'll walk with them too. ROI. I know we're coming up on this, Bill. I'm sorry. This took a little longer than I anticipated. ROI, retention data is clear. Companies with strong mentorship culture see up to 49% lower turnover. Or onboarding gets faster and smarter. Safety improves and leadership becomes a pipeline, not a scramble when somebody walks out the door. The bigger why is you're creating a legacy when you create a mentorship program. It grows leaders, it grows your recruiting programs, it turns the next generation into your future leaders because you're building people, not just castings. So your quick call to action, pick one person to mentor this month, invite someone to mentor you, and make mentorship visible, valued, and intentional. And so Q&A, I'm gonna not ask my questions because we've got 7 minutes. I want people to feel open to asking questions. If we don't get any, I'll ask you guys questions.
I'm looking to see if there's any questions, but I was gonna actually you mentioned a couple of things in the last couple of slides, but again, how do you choose who you should mentor?
Uh, how leaders on this call should mentor?
Yeah, how should the leaders on this call, if they're thinking to themselves who should they be mentoring? How do they pick that person or that
Uh,
individual?
they should pick that person based on that person watching them, right? So that could be anybody on their leadership team, that could be a supervisor on the floor, it could be a frontline employee. But the we all know those individuals who watch what we do when we're at work, the people who study us, and it may feel uncomfortable for us, but those are the people that we should go to and start asking questions of. Another way that leaders could do it is if they have a new hire that's coming on board, mentor that person, start with that person. Um, and stick with it for at least 90 days, if not beyond, and keep that mentorship cycle going.
Now, there is a question on here that someone asked is, and they didn't raise their hand, they just put it in. So we are saying no to pizza parties.
So I have a rule with pizza parties. Pizza parties to me do not buy engagement. They do not buy loyalty. They buy participation. So I only do pizza parties when I am doing a lunch and learn, when I am doing a focus group. If I am looking to get engagement, as far as information out of them, or trying to provide information to them, that's when pizza parties are appropriate. If we're looking for a staff appreciation day, go bigger than pizza parties. Bring in a food truck. Pizza parties are good for lunch and learns and focus groups.
Hope that answered who's ever wrote that down because they kept themselves off. But any other questions? While we're waiting, I'll ask what if you were to say in a couple of words, what truly is that difference between being a boss and being a mentor?
Oof. Being a boss focuses on metrics. Being a boss focuses on tactics, on what results are. Being a mentor focuses on the process, on the growth, on the human. Um, and sometimes there's overlap, but a lot of times there's not. Being a mentor means that you are uh, empowering your people to fail, to learn from their mistakes. And I know that in the foundry world and the manufacturing world, it's scary to allow people to make mistakes, but that's how people learn. So we have to give them that ability.
And also, I want to be able to, I'm looking at in terms of the time, but I'm so glad we have everyone who started on the call is still on the call, or the webinar. One of the things that, we started this with the next gen webinar series, and why would we start next gen with something that goes to the bosses, the leaders of the organization, mostly
Right.
because we need your help to let us know who are those next gen, who are those emerging leaders at your foundry, at your business, to provide us that information so we can invite them to do these webinar series. One will be about active listening. Um,
Awesome.
to talk about that, but we need your help to provide us with those names. Because right now we're only sending the information to you. Help us to be able to send the information directly to the people to show, that was one of the things when Jim asked me about Carl Wangman as or even Paul Anselmo, who I would say is my workforce development mentor. Um, they saw potential in me and they actually allowed me to do some additional educational opportunities. They encouraged me to do an association management course, which is what Carl did, or Paul sent me to a sector skills academy.
Wow.
So, Jim, you want to talk 2 seconds about helping being a mentor also helps is showing by investing in the mentee's education.
Absolutely. I mean, um, part of this silver tsunami is we not only are we losing that knowledge on the floor, we're losing our leadership. And my generation, Gen X, Bill's generation, Gen X, we've seen the generation ahead of us work longer into their careers, so we haven't prioritized leadership development the way we possibly or probably should have. And so It's going to take owners like you all on the call today and listening to the recording down the road, identifying who is going to be on your leadership bench, and organization like NIFs that have next gen or emerging leaders type programs are so vital because they tailor the content to your industry. They take again those proven leadership qualities, those principles, and they package it in a way that makes sense for the people who are your next generation of leaders. So, part of mentoring is empowering people to gain the knowledge that you wish that you had early in your leadership journey as well.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Always appreciate this. Again, you have his information right on there. If you reach out to him, he'll connect with you. If you're at a manufacturing conference, most likely he'll be there. And if you didn't find it, you'll see on his LinkedIn post that he did. He is the king of selfies at a manufacturing conference. Knows it. Listen to his podcast.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the early ones, like the one that I was on, but more the ones that he has. There are a lot on engagement and
Yeah.
engagement of your employees. And I would say
Yep.
how critical that is. So go to the mfgconnector.com to find out more information. We'll have that playbook out to you and to everybody. Um, and if you have any questions or anything, always feel free to reach out to me at bill@nifs.org. So thank you very much. Jim, again, thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
everyone who spent their lunchtime with us. Appreciate it.